এনেকৈ বজাই তাৰমানে সেই কৰে অকল বাতিটোৱে নহয় যদি এটা বাতি যায় এডাল এনেকুৱা লাঠিও যাব লাগে লগত
In Sarthibari, Mrinal Dekha is one of the few people who've mastered the art of making cymbals and musical bowls, a far from easy task.
মানে এইটো ক'ব নোৱাৰি যে এইটো মাত হ'বই কেতিয়াবা নহয় কমন মিষ্টেক হৈ যায় কেতিয়াবা হয় আৰু ডাইৰেক্টলি তাৰমানে ক'ব নোৱাৰি এইটো ক'ত কেতিয়া কি হ'ব অকস্মাত কেতিয়াবা তাৰ পৰা তাত পেলাই দিলেও হৈ যায় মাত কেতিয়াবা ইয়াত মাৰিলেও নহয় এনেকৈ আজি এই পাত মাত নলালেই
His challenge is to get the right sound from a pair of cymbals by beating the metal to perfection.
নাই মই বজাব জানো মই বজাই যিখিনি মোৰ মানে নলেজত থাকি যায় সেইটো ৰাখি থৈ দিওঁ আৰু জানিলে তাৰমানে এই মালটো চলিব নহ'লে নচলে মাতটো
While the utensils made in Sarthibari are primarily for a local market, their cymbals and musical bowls are in demand in China and Thailand. Yet, the lack of sustained local demand within the country can be a serious threat.
Why are we chasing their market? Why are we not chasing our own market, which one has purchasing power, two has a cultural understanding. There is a resonance which kind of makes us feel, yes, this is ours. We understand, as I say, the cultural tradition.
Sarthibari's artisans have taken advantage of their larger numbers and formed a cooperative that's reached out to markets across India, eliminating middlemen and their hefty fees. While this has made life more lucrative for Sarthibari's craftsmen, daily life is still a struggle to make ends meet for the tiny community of metal artisans in Hajo. Mostly belonging to the Maurya community, Hajo's many Muslim metal workers live in a colony called Muslim Patti next to the town's main temple. For centuries now, all brass utensils used in the temple's sacrosanct kitchen are made by the Mauryas, who are said to be descendants of Mughal soldiers who were captured in Assam after the defeat of the Mughal army in the 17th century. Their knowledge of making metal weaponry was later transformed into making utensils used in the temple's rituals. On any given day, every nook and cranny in the Maurya's Muslim Patti resonates with the clanging of metal. Hajo's artisans are trying to reinvent their ancient craft, so it survives these commercial times.
It's like a river. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's an island in the middle of a river and the next minute you know you don't see the island anymore. A lot of crafts, it's very difficult even when you're documenting to say 100% that yes, 2 years later it will be there. And on the other hand, there may be a craft that wasn't there. Craft is again, as I say, so much something from the heart and the head and the hand and a little bit of nature, whatever is around you. And as long as you have the craftsperson dependent on that nature, the craftsperson will sustain nature and nature will sustain the craftsperson.
As Hakim Ali returns home after a long day searching for work, he joins his fellow artisans as they strive to perpetuate their craft. And as he works, he might perhaps be heartened to know that there are other places where just a few artisans gifted with brilliant craftsmanship are establishing themselves and introducing their craft tradition, hoping they take root. Located in the foothills of the Himalayas, Sikkim is the center of Tibetan Buddhism. Teeming with monasteries, Sikkim seems a natural center for Buddhist sculpture and art.
Sikkim is a place which has a fair amount of literacy and prosperity. And quite often, if prosperity catches to them quickly, they don't bother with skills which are difficult to do. But most of these Buddhist figures now are made either in Dharamshala by the Tibetans or a lot in UP. And the most beautiful Buddha statues you get are today in UP.
Babu Kazi Saikia, at a very young age, set out to change his fate and to revive Sikkim's vanishing legacy of making Buddhist statues. Originally a jewelry maker, he dabbled with a variety of metal handicrafts before establishing himself as a sculptor, using the ancient lost wax technique to make Buddhist figurines.
वो तो ऐसे होता है, हम लोग का कारीगर लाइन में तो जितना काम करता है उतना अपनी नॉलेज ज़्यादा होता है, सोच विचार कर रहा है, अब इधर ऐसे बनाने से ऐसे होगा, ऐसे बनाने से ऐसे होगा, वो काम करके करके आगे बढ़ता है ना.
His work was so fine that he soon won the patronage of Sikkim's former king. Later, the Indian government too conferred the national award on him. But in spite of all these accolades, Babu Kazi's dedication to his art is unchanged.
अब आराम तो अब क्या होगा, अब हम लोग कारीगर लोग तो आराम कहाँ मिलेगा. वो सपना में भी वो सोचता है ऐसे बनाना है वैसे बनाना, आराम तो कहाँ मिलेगा.
Babu Saikia has seen a great deal in life. Today, he can afford to take it a little easier in his Gantok shop full of antique statues, musical instruments and jewelry. For he has passed on his craft to many people. The chief amongst them, his son, Vijay Kazi Saikia. Father and son collaborate on what will perhaps be their most celebrated work, a commission Vijay has received from the Rabang monastery to make a 136-foot tall statue of the Buddha, so large that it must be made in 3 parts. Once it is completed, it is slated to be the world's tallest copper statue of the Buddha, taking its place in the tradition of beautiful and monumental Buddhist sculpture. And the sculpting of this sacred statue has been entrusted to Vijay because of his scrupulous attention to detail.
बुद्धिस्ट लोग का रिलीजियस का मुताबिक जितना बुक पुराना बुक जैसे टिबेटन लॉजी में जाकर लाइब्रेरी में जाकर हम लोग स्टडी करता है, उसमें पुराना में पूरा ग्राफिक वगैरह का नक्शा दिया होता है. हम लोग वही अनुसार से फॉलो करता है, अपना हिसाब से नहीं करता है, फिर बाद में रिलीजियस कमिटी एक्सेप्ट नहीं करता है.
Vijay Saikia's work is exacting, not just because he's a perfectionist, but also because Buddhist figurines have to be made according to strictly prescribed norms to be used for worship. He also studies in detail ancient Buddhist scriptures and manuscripts in order to understand his art completely. Monks often drop by at Vijay Saikia's workshop to discuss the religious details he needs to take care of while giving shape to the iconic statues.
फेस का जितना भाग होता है, जैसा ये 1 फीट हो गया तो शोल्डर्स भी 1 फीट ही होता है, या आपका आर्म्स भी 1 फीट होता है, ये 1.5 फीट होता है, या 1 फीट होता है, वो हिसाब से करता है हम लोग बनाता है. ये 2.5 फीट होता है, सब ये फेस का हिसाब से होता है.
Perhaps because of his intense study of his craft and his father's training, Vijay Saikia has become a master craftsman who shapes statues from beeswax. Later, molds are made from this beeswax master and replicas churned out from it. Like the Garuas of Chhattisgarh, the Saikias use the lost wax technique, but slightly differently. Here, the entire statue is made of wax in order to ensure the finished figurine is hollow. Vijay's wife lends a hand, packing the wax designs with layers of clay. While the clay dries in the sun, the rest of the Saikia family help out, making the furnace, pouring the molten metal, supporting the maestro at work. The metals used here are also different, with copper replacing the alloys used in dokra.
जो हम लोग का स्टैचू कॉपर में बनता है, उसमें हम लोग का सोना का 24 कैरेट गोल्ड का डेकोरेशन करता है, वो कॉपर में ही होता है ज़्यादातर। दूसरा मेटल में ज़्यादा सोना जाता है और महंगा हो जाता है। फिर कॉपर का उतना इंडिया में नहीं है कि हम लोग तो अब थोड़ा रिमोट प्लेस में ट्रांसपोर्टेशन रॉ मटेरियल का कॉस्ट से हम लोग ब्रास का स्टैचू में कंपटीशन ले नहीं पाता है।
Freed from the mold, the copper statues are then coated with a mixture of mercury and gold. When subjected to intense heat, the mercury melts, leaving the gold behind. The statue is then polished and washed until it gleams.
In Sikkim, they go for the shine, they go for the finished look, because they mostly are making Buddhas, and it's something divine, and they need a little bit of finish on that.
Working for monasteries and making such large statues is only a small part of Vijay Saikia's busy schedule. He also caters to local Sikkimese, making statues for their household altars known as chosums. K. Bhutia is one such customer who is looking for a new statue for his chosum. But this Buddhist statue is not yet ready for worship. First, it must be consecrated. At the Chorten Monastery, monks prepare specially inscribed prayer scrolls. These scrolls are then placed inside the hollow statue to instill life and power in it. Mahayana Buddhists believe this lends organs and senses to the statue, filling it in a way that no negative space is left over for evil powers to enter. But if a specially commissioned Buddhist sculpture is out of reach, Buddhist figurines or other metal souvenirs are easily available in MG Road in Gangtok. The site of a bustling local market, it caters to the people of Sikkim as well as to the huge inflow of tourists who visit this idyllic Himalayan retreat. Their demand for this craft is vital to ensure new craftsmen enter this nascent tradition.
It becomes a question of keeping one family going, arranging a training program, asking them. But if it's very tedious, then they have to be able to ensure a market before they can bother to continue.
These markets mushrooming in and around Sikkim hold promise and hope for this craft. The influx of new people into this tradition ensures that this craft is quickly established here. Lakshman Saikia and his brothers have come to Gangtok, leaving behind wives and children in their villages, to learn the art of making Buddhist figures, to establish themselves in this nascent craft tradition.
दार्जिलिंग में हमने काम किया और दार्जिलिंग में गुरु ने हमको बोला चलो चलो सिक्किम चलता है। सिक्किम चले गए और सिक्किम आया। सिक्किम में आकर 2-3 ठो ऐसे सामान बनाए हमने और गुरु चला गया। हमको बोला तुम काम करो, तो ठीक है हम काम करेंगे। और बड़ा भैया को बुलाया हमने, हम दोनों बैठकर काम करा और उसके बाद ऐसे सेटल हो गए।
For now, the brothers live in what seem to be semi-transient circumstances. Whenever their busy schedules permit, they return to their homes and families.
ऐसे ही दिवाली दुर्गा पूजा में टाइम होता है और हमारा तो मन करता है गांव में.
But someday, maybe they too will have workshops where their wives help out in between their household chores, where children play underfoot, watching, absorbing their father's craft.
There's this requirement for aesthetics in everyday life. As a form of self-discovery, they would slowly get into the stream of either casting it, or either forging it, or either just sort of beating it into shape. So it is, you never could be able to pinpoint why this tribe took up casting and why this tribe took up only beating it and melting it into shape. I guess it would depend on the people there. It would depend on the person who actually discovered that this could be done at that time. And that's why we find that each and every place has their own form of art.
Metal craft and the communities who practice them have survived through the ages. They've invented and reinvented themselves, at times traveled far and wide. But India is changing drastically, and numerous traditional ways of life and economic support systems are vanishing. But somehow, somewhere in this post-industrial world, there is still some space for the magic and the mystery of finely wrought metal.